Hey guys, Ali Duzette here, and I've been meaning to do this video for a long time, but today is the first day I've had a chance to actually do it. We've got to talk about the situation in the Middle East. And I sent my darling mother to be the one to find the exact moment that the first attack began. And we're going to look at the chart of this, if I can figure out how to share my screen. Okay, here we go. Oh man, and somebody just sent me instructions for how to make my cursor bigger. Do you see my cursor over there? But I forgot to check it out before I started recording this, and I'll have to try it next time. Okay, this is the moment that the attack began in Tel Aviv at 6:25 a.m. This may not be exactly correct, but it's as close to correct as I could get, okay? So this is the chart of that attack, and there is a bunch of interesting stuff going on here, and I'm going to start with the thing that caught my eye at first. As I was taking a look at this, the first thing I noticed was this part of fortune at 3 degrees of Capricorn. That's this X marks the spot right here. And I don't know why it caught my eye, except I thought, okay, this is the treasure. Anytime you see that part of fortune in a chart, that's going to tell you where is the treasure found here. It's kind of like a motivating factor, or it shows what we're looking for. And so what are we looking for? Well, we're looking for 3 degrees of Capricorn. Now, do you see this blue line going right up here to this little section right here? This means that there's going to be an easy flow between the treasure and this stuff. This stuff is Venus, the quintessential feminine energy. This is the black moon, which deals with boundaries, and it's kind of like the dark feminine, the medicine woman, and this is Juno, who deals with marriage. And this is really interesting to me that these would show up, because I've been having some discussions with some of my friends about how the situation in the Middle East really at its root is linked to sex slavery, in the context of like Abraham. We had Abraham, and then he had his wife, Sarah, and then she gave her servant to him to use to bear children for him, right? Hagar. And so from Sarah, we have Isaac, and from Hagar, we have Ishmael. And so and as I was looking at this, I was like, wow, this is like exactly, it sums up a lot of the struggles in the Middle East from my perspective, like the struggle between the descendants of Abraham, these two different lines. And why did it happen? Because of sexual slavery, which deals with this issue of loyalty and commitment and feminine energy. And it's all sandwiching this black moon, which is going to be obsessed with laying down the law and making sure that boundaries are enforced. And that is really what a lot of the stuff going on in the Middle East is all about, right? It's literal geographical boundaries, right? And from what I understand, there is just a lot of negative stuff that has been happening around the land itself and who gets to use it. And settlers of some places getting displaced, and then like all this conflict happening between both sides, and it's a big mess. And so of course it makes sense that the treasure with this situation is going to be tied to boundaries. How are we establishing our geographical boundaries? Okay, let's go back to this chart. And okay, now this line right here, now notice it has a red line down here to this guy who has a little blue line back to the part of fortune. It's creating this little square. And oh man, I looked up the name of this shape the other day, but I can't remember it. But we have this little triangle here. It's half of a mystic rectangle. And what that can indicate sometimes is a little bit of indecision in how to move forward. So that will be interesting to see how that plays out. But this is the third corner of this triangle. We have our treasure at 3 degrees of Capricorn. Up here, we have all of this stuff going on around boundaries, especially dealing with women and marriage, but also just general issues of commitment. Who are we committed to? Why are we committed to them? And what requires people to think about their commitments more than war. Like this makes a lot of sense to me. And then down here we have Saturn. Saturn at 1 degree of Pisces. And this is another interesting placement to me because Saturn deals with the law of the harvest. Saturn is all about, as ye sow, so shall ye reap. You're going to get what you have put out into the world, right? And, I think you can read about what's happening out there and see from a lot of different perspectives how various parties have put certain things out into the world and now are receiving results from the seeds that they have planted. Okay, so let's go back to this chart. Okay, so we have this triangle happening, and to me this was really critical. Going back to 3 degrees of Capricorn. Oh, it's so interesting. No, I'll just tell you right now. Okay, what's interesting about that 3 degrees of Capricorn is that I looked it up and there is a fixed star there called Polis, and apparently it is the only fixed star that is linked to achieving greater status in your religion, which is so interesting. If you have anything at 3 degrees of Capricorn, it has been historically linked to gaining prestige in a religious setting. So that might be like I don't know, like becoming a pope or something like that, like becoming a cardinal, like gaining some kind of reputation or gaining some kind of something around organized religion. That is the star for that. So how fascinating is that is the part of fortune in this chart. The exact moment that this attack began, it was triggering off this part of fortune that's saying, like, now is the time to solidify your reputation through your religion, which is really true on all sides of the coin. Of course, this is not just a religious situation out there. I need to be very clear about that. It is not. It partially is, but like it is also this geopolitical, situation of land and borders and boundaries. And a lot of people out there are not expressly religious, actually, but many of them are. And to the extent that they are, this part of fortune is saying you need to go and earn your reputation for your religion. So this is really interesting, especially in the context of things like jihad, that is the part of fortune in that moment. And I don't know. I mean, what are the odds, right? So that is really interesting. Now, there is some other interesting stuff going on in this chart. Okay, come on, where is it? Here it is. Okay, this light green line, I know it's so hard to see. It's like neon green, and I don't know how to make it not neon green. Going again from this section up here, we need to establish boundaries. It's making this triangle here with Neptune, who famously leads to delusion. Wherever Neptune is in a chart, that is where you're delusional. It's where you need a wake-up call. It is where you're going to have a lot of trouble discerning if you are being spiritually led or spiritually tricked. Are you being guided or blinded? Neptune shows you where you need to tune into your intuition and connect with our creator. And or you might be misled by other negative spiritual forces. So we have that on this end, and then this other neon green triangle going right over here to the South Node and Mars conjunct. The South Node and Mars conjunct is really interesting as well, because this deals with our destiny, this little horseshoe guy, that South Node. And the destiny of this chart on this end deals with noticing what is unfair. Libra is the judge, and it cares deeply about what is fair and what is not fair. And I think that crises in the Middle East, hopefully we can all see how they kind of boil down to that. And all crises everywhere really boil down to that. Like, this is not fair, and this is what I think should be fair. And now I'm going to take action and make it fair. Libra always deals with issues of fairness and wanting things to be fair. Aries is the warrior and is ready to just jump into a conflict and take action. Right now, this very day, we're in the middle of an eclipse portal that deals with Libra and Aries, the Libra and Aries axis, where we are all in the whole world. Everybody is fixated on issues of fairness in their own lives, in their own relationships, inside of your own self, and how you spend your time. On a personal level, we're looking at this. And at the same time, that North Node in Aries is kind of systematically reducing our hesitation to engage in conflict. Okay. And so I would bet that you can probably see this in your regular life. Perhaps people around you and perhaps yourself are noticing that you're more and more willing to go fight about something. Like, I'm willing to fight about this. And we can certainly see it in the Middle East, right? And so that is very, very interesting. To have the south node next to Mars. Mars goes with Aries, and it is a warrior energy. It's telling me that there is a lot of warrior energy going on in this chart, and it's starting from a space of things are not fair and I want to fight about it, and it's ending squarely in the it's time to fight about it zone. So this is just a very, very interesting chart. Okay, where's my screen? Here we go. The next thing that we have to talk about in this chart is something called a T-square. Even though it's a triangle, it's called a T-square because the shape, it kind of makes the shape of a T, which turns out to look like a triangle, but it's called a T-square. And it's made with the moon up here, Pluto down here, see that red line connecting, and then they are making these lines over here back to that south node and Mars in Libra. Okay, do you see how that makes that red line? Anytime you have a T-square, that's going to indicate a lot of tension. A lot of tension. I always compare it to a trampoline, because when you have that kind of tension, it can actually be really helpful, because when things are tight enough, you can bounce on them. But if it's kind of slack, then you can't. So I don't typically view oppositions and squares as bad. A lot of astrologers do, but I feel like they can be very utile, like they can be very helpful in your chart if you know how to work with them. But if you don't know how to work with them and they're just showing up there, then it looks like a mess, okay? And that's what we're kind of looking like here in this chart. We have the moon opposite Pluto. And what does that mean? It means that the emotions of the people are going to be in tight opposition with actual death and rebirth. Okay, this is Pluto inviting us to have a massive transformation of how we feel. And I think that that is true. I think that probably everybody involved and also spectators are experiencing transformations in their emotional makeup just by being aware of the situation. But of course, times a bazillion for the people actually involved, right? So we have that moon and Pluto opposition, and then it cuts out to the T-square on the other side, which is the south node and Mars. So it's what that does is it means it's kind of linked to our destiny, right? There's this destiny link between the feelings of the people and death and rebirth, transformation, a massive societal change. Like, this is in our destiny. Okay. And you know what, as I'm looking at it, I'm like, what was I thinking? The other end is going to be the north node. So this is not just a T-square, it is a grand cross. So that's what we're really looking at, this grand cross involving the nodes of destiny. The destiny here is for the people to experience massive death and rebirth. I don't know, it's not a fun chart, right? That's not so fun. But okay, we have one more little thing to talk about here, which is another yod. So the neon green triangle that I showed you, that's called a yod, and that indicates a divine calling. The first one that we looked at had the divine calling of tuning in with our creator and finding out what to do. Everyone involved in this conflict, and I would say also spectators that are showing an interest in it, our job is to tune in with our creator and find out how exactly should you personally feel about this. And I don't know exactly how God will answer that question for you, but everyone involved and everyone spectating, everybody aware, is being called to tune in with our creator to get answers. Now, look, that same green line, sorry, my baby is very happy over here. They're singing very loudly. Okay, we have that line back up here to that feminine energy and that boundaries energy, and flowing back down here to Pluto. And it makes this little sextile right here, that blue line. And this is another yod, which is saying that women and children in a conflict over boundaries may experience a lot of spiritual confusion. Why is this happening to me? And may experience a lot of death and transformation, right? Pluto is power. Pluto is death and rebirth. Pluto is Hades in Greek mythology. Pluto is the one actually guarding the underworld and like running the underworld. He is the god of death. And so as I'm looking at that chart, I'm like, okay, this is a chart like in the context of this conflict, my sense is that there is what the chart reflects is death and rebirth, negative situations, specifically for women and for children, I would say. And I think that is true. I was just listening to a guy's video where he was talking about how like anything is apparently going out there with as far as like women and children being targeted and stuff like that. It is a mess, but it is indicated by the stars. So going back to the chart, as I was looking at it, I thought like, okay, what can we make of this chart? Can we look at it and see when the conflict might be over? Can we like look at it and, I don't know, take a stab at the future? I don't think so. I just don't think so. I don't know. Looking at it, I don't know what to expect will happen next, but I will say that there's a lot of interesting stuff here going on astrologically in the context of these current events. My biggest takeaway is that everybody involved is called to listen to our creator and take action based on the spiritual information that we are getting from our creator. And that 3 degrees part of fortune in Capricorn is telling me that our religious connections play a role here. And that's going to look different person to person and like culture to culture. But once again, that draws us back to who are we connected to on a spiritual level? How good are we listening to our creator? How much are we allowing our creator's influence to dictate our actions? And that is really the crux of this situation for everybody involved. How can we do a better job of listening to our creator as spectators, as people actually involved? That is really going to be the answer. Tune in and listen to what our creator is saying to you about this. Like I hope I try to keep this like very, very neutral, and I hope it feels neutral to you. This is true for everybody. Everybody has a call to listen to our creator, listen to your intuition, get clear on what is intuition and what might not be, what might be spiritual information from a negative source. There is nothing more important than this. And that is the big message of this chart to me. So, okay, thank you for being here. Of course, come hang out on Facebook if you want to, Intuitive Healing with Ali Duzette. I try not to talk a lot about current events in the Facebook group. And whenever we talk about current events, I really try to keep it as neutral as possible because these things are interesting. They affect all of us and they're very polarizing. And that is not that's not the energy that I want to bring into these discussions, because everybody's being affected no matter how they feel about the different things in play, right? So we're just going to keep it respectful and keep it as positive as we can, despite knowing how horrible some things can be. And yeah, thank you guys for being here. I hope this was helpful. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you later.